Welcome everyone to the Within the Margin podcast, where we speak to authors and more across the globe to speak about their inspirations and the tiny little important details behind their books, life, parents, and everything in between. Within the Margin is a proud member of the Daydreaming Network, where stories come to life. Today we are sitting down with a very new friend of mine, but a very good friend of mine, Tina Shepardson, with the Lil Leaders Podcast. And thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you so much for inviting me. I look forward to our conversation.
No, it's going to be very fun. Well, tell us kind of what makes Tina, Tina.
So what makes Tina, Tina? I have been a teacher for 33 years. Also am a child from a divorced family. So putting those two things together, creating a community for kids was really important to me. At the same time I was creating for them, kids were also providing me with a close-knit community. During all those years, I had a great run and met wonderful kids. And when I retired in 2021, knowing that I would miss them, I really decided that I wanted to create an online community for kids using my podcast, children's books that I write, as well as online courses that will debut this coming May for anywhere between ages 5 and 10. Being a parent, that was also a factor. I think as adults, it's just very important in today's world to create that safe environment for kids. I thrive on the morning hour. I've had dogs, Akitas, for 30 years. So it is not uncommon.
We see them back there.
Yes, it is not uncommon with all of them that we've had, because we always have two at a time, to see me out there at 4:30 walking. And if it looks like I'm talking, I am, because I always am running through what I need to do today, or when I was teaching. When you get to the classroom, lay this out, open up that window. So it really helps me to be productive.
Awesome. Yes, for everyone who's watching us, that is not a rug behind you. That is a dog.
That's all I take a nap.
That is awesome. And I love the idea of the online community for children. And I think it's through our conversation, I know we're going to have a lot of things. You're going to see a lot of correlation with that concept. So can you kind of plug like with the Lil Leaders Podcast? So we're mainly here to talk about Walkout, but Lil Leaders Podcast, we've gotten to work together with that, and it's a really cool thing that you do. So can you kind of tell us more about what you're doing there?
So the podcast actually came to me during the pandemic, when I, as a teacher with very little digital skills, was thrown into teaching online, Google Classroom, literally overnight. We had a few days to prepare, and I was a basket case because I didn't know. Thankfully, I had wonderful younger teachers that could help me. And then my students could help me. And it was just that flavor of community online. And I thought, oh my gosh, wouldn't it be cool to do something where kids continue to share and learn from each other? And I took a free podcasting class to educate myself a bit about it. And I just fell in love with it. Often we can say to a child what we think they should do or how they can do something, and they might listen. But when they hear it from a peer, someone that they look at as their equal, they almost jump in and say, oh, why didn't you tell me that sooner? And so my vision has been to just bring different kinds of kids that have been leaders in everyday kinds of situations that hopefully can impact other kids.
That is very cool. I know with us, we've gotten to work with some of the kids who have been premiering on your site, on your podcast. They've been reading some of our stuff on the Daydreaming Network, and you should like the reaction is so much bigger. It's just like, because the kids are like, we don't really want to listen to the adults. They love listening to each other.
They do. And the kids that read were so surprised at how much they love poetry.
Really?
Reading poetry. Yes. Because even when I heard the recordings before I sent them to you, I could hear a difference in their voices. And I thought, my gosh, when I was a child, maybe I would have liked poetry more if I'd had those same kinds of opportunities.
Oh yeah, because that's kind of the whole point of what we're trying to do is like kind of bring these little things that right now the world's so, especially with being online, when it comes to kids, there's so many other things trying to take their attention away.
Yeah.
and and you're just, everyone's constantly battling. And I have 3 young kids, 6, 4, and 2, and the moment the iPad snuck into the house, it is like you can just tell it's just pulling at them, and you're
Yeah,
just like, wait a minute, no. And like the idea of like being able to supply them that environment, you know, they just gravitate towards it.
they do. And I think too with kids, you and I collaborating and working together, it's all about adding value to that safe community for kids online. Because if they're
Exactly.
going to be online, you want them to be engaging in activities that add value to their lives.
Exactly. And speaking of the word safe, I think that's a great little headway to your book, Walkout. Can you tell us? So it was great because you'll notice it for those who read the book and listen to our, because it's actually going to be on our site.
I'm
What do you?
excited.
You know, these two are main characters are the 2 kids, and just kind of give us a, a synopsis and kind of tell us what's, what the book is about, and kind of what was that aha moment to you that like this is the book that has to be written.
That was such a great question you asked. When I saw the question, I thought, I can't wait to share it. So this is Walkout, and this released in 2020, and it's
Okay.
based on a true story. So the characters, Maddie and Stella, want to
Okay.
hold a school walkout, but their principal tells them that they're too young because they are in the primary grades.
Okay.
Maddie feels very strongly about it, and her friend Stella does also, but she's so afraid she's going to get in trouble. So the actual characters. So here's Maddie.
Oh yeah.
Let's see
There we
Stella.
go.
And if here's Stella, and I love taking them on visits. The kids just love them. So
That's awesome.
I have been writing. I know, aren't they? And I was a doll person as a kid, so this was right up my alley. So when we Marjorie Stoneman Douglas, Valentine's Day 2018, when that school shooting happened, I already at that point had been with my 6th grade classes for Columbine and Sandy Hook, sending care packages to the community members. We would send poems. The kids would write poems. I can always send it to you. And then we would
Okay.
attach the poems to seed packets like forget-me-nots. And
Okay.
I would send a whole box of like 150 with like a class note. And then at the same time, I was taking writing classes. So when unfortunately Marjorie Stoneman Douglas happened, I thought, you know what? You have some new skills. Why don't you write a story about advocacy? So
Okay.
that's what the book is about. And it's also layered into friendship because Maddie continues to check with Stella to see if she changes her mind about joining. And she doesn't, but she's a good friend and they can definitely agree to disagree. Sometimes we don't always have that in our friendships, whether we're adults
Just a
or
little bit.
kids. Yeah.
Exactly. Well, that was an interesting perspective that you put on it, because this is and I kind of picked up on a trend. I kind of came up with the idea that your concepts are all child led, but like adult supported, where like the teacher does support this thing, but this is about the 2 students and them dealing with, and, if you think about it on a very plain level, if you take away everything outside of it, like kind of the politics of the world, who everyone's anti-violence. No one's really on the pro-violence train, but somehow, you know, it does sometimes things hit differently with people. And the idea of, you have one friend who's being patient with the other friend
Mhm.
and, taking them along that journey. It's a very important topic to have. I loved how your take on it was.
Oh, thank you. And the other thing too is we all need to advocate for different things throughout our lifetime. It doesn't necessarily have to be about safe schools all of the time, but there's other issues. Someone not being treated fairly at recess, someone not having the same chores as a sibling, and they, want to advocate for that equality at home. There's all different kinds of reasons that you need to be an advocate in your life peacefully without arguing and shouting, and certainly not violence.
Well, that was an interesting thing about that, because even in the character the whole time, it's a patient approach of, hey, are you good? Kind of checking in on people to kind of just,
Mhm.
seeing where they're at. I think that was a very, very cool approach.
Thank you.
Um, so why? Why do you think, even on a topic like this, kind of on, to kind of branch outside of the book, because of course, when people read this book, it's in, they can be in various worlds. And so like, when this kind of conversation occurs, what do you think about these kind of topics bring out those tensions? Like, I guess, and what do you think the most important thing that the main character, because the character
Maddie?
Stella was the one who's Maddie. What was the
Mhm.
important thing that Maddie did that you think that you want to bring to kids?
That even though she wanted to lead the walkout, she still had empathy and understanding for a friend who just didn't feel comfortable being on board. Uh, I think the earlier in life that we can all learn to agree to disagree and yet still be supportive of one another. I think if we can all acquire those empathetic skills as we age and grow, hopefully we can nurture relationships in better ways long term. And so I love
That
that
is
about the girls. It was just a different layer to the topic itself.
definitely, definitely. And I know in the Little Leaders podcast, you do not to be jumping around too much on you, but like you guys do hit so many different various kind of topics, important like leadership skills. And so I love just the kind of overall vibe of the environment that you're developing and, putting all the pieces into place. I think that's just very cool.
Thank you. I love the kids. It's funny. The last guest that I had, her name was Essie. I said to her at the end that I was almost so sad because you get to spend, a half an hour with these adorable children. And it reminds me how much I do miss the classroom and just being
Yeah.
around kids. And they are these little people who just share these experiences that and it just lights them up. And I just think when you see that in kids, you just need to listen and just let them share.
Oh, definitely. Well, it was interesting when I first my oldest is in the first grade. And I remember the first time we sent her off to kindergarten, and I was like, wait, she's gonna be gone for 8 hours. Like, and the idea, it was like, wait, who's teaching our kids? Like, and I you don't even know these people. And you just have the faith that it's gonna work. But it's really cool, like even outside of, your outside, once you finish your teaching career, well, then you're creating an environment for kids outside of the school.
Hmm.
And I think that's very cool. The idea of like, your ability you see the importance of still investing, even though you have finished your teaching career, you're
Right.
not done teaching. You're just doing it in a kind of a different way.
Yes, I definitely look at it as a way of giving back. I had just 33 great years, and certainly those years had their ups and downs, but that's all part of a learning process, no matter what you do.
Yes.
But I wanted to give back and to be able to write stories and hopefully publish them to make an impact or to share stories from other kids on the podcast. Right now, just creating an online class to help them build confidence and connection. They all tie together, but it's a safe place.
Hmm.
Sometimes, in school, we don't want to be, pulled from our classroom to go work on these things. And other times it's nice to just maybe meet some other kids and their parents, because I'll encourage parents to be involved in the course too, in a small
Of
setting.
course. Very cool. D- d- so crap. Luckily, we'll cut out this part. We'll cut out the. um.
I always say that too to people.
So, any part of my notes I need to. I don't know why I just hit a brain fart. Da-da. So, what would you say your overall? Okay, this. So, what do you think your overall goal is? So, like as you foresee your environment that you're creating, 5, 10 years from now, where do you see it? What is your ultimate goal?
Ooh, that's a great question.
I'm not sure I wrote that on initially on your paper.
I have it. I have it. I definitely, with our world changing the way it is, would like to help kids by empowering them to be able to attack or handle their everyday challenges with a positive growth mindset, that helps them have effective communication, thoughtful decision making, and problem solving skills. To feel that when something, even if it's, gosh, I just got to lunch, I have a
Oh,
band lesson, I'm last in line. How can I handle this in a way that's thoughtful and moves me forward instead of getting all anxiety ridden or stressed about it?
perfect. That's a wonderful. So why do you think it's so important? There's a various reasons, but like I feel like when it comes to communication skills with kids, because online,
Yeah.
I feel like that does hamper. We were just talking about beforehand the idea of like me and you would talk so much through email, and it's like, oh, look, there's a person on the on the
I
other side.
know. Voice. I miss voice.
Yeah, it's so nice, but the idea that like, especially with even yesterday we had a big storm coming through, and they like canceled school, and they were like, hey, e-learning. Of course, my first grader's not e-learning anything; she's
Sure.
sitting at home. And so the idea of like everything is so easy now to just bring online, but that can just disassociate people from that kind of, especially with kids who they're going to take what you give them. If we give them a very highly interactive environment, they will take that. If they in an enriching environment, but if we give them a non-enriching environment, they'll take that as well. But it's very cool how you're incorporating that communication level with the kids on top of the world that the world is going to. It's going more technology. It's going online, but incorporating that communication skill.
And yet, regardless of how much we continue to move online and have technology online, all of us still need to be able to live with people, and you still need to be able to have discussions, have disagreements. You need to be able to work in a work environment. Maybe some of it's remote, maybe some of it's in person, but you still need to be able to share ideas. And sometimes without voice inflection, without facial expression, just without that presence of the other person, you lose something.
Exactly. I know I am terrible at that. I sit on an email and I sit there for like 30 minutes on a simple email being like, this doesn't sound right. I am terrible at like the inflection
I
part of
do
an
too.
email. Because as you notice, I talk a lot with my hands. So
That's okay, but see, in a text or in an email, we don't get to see that about you.
no,
So it's really neat when you do see someone in person and you get to learn and watch and hear those mannerisms. It energizes you as well.
exactly. Exactly. Do, 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 do. Okay, so is there anything else we're missing, do you think?
No, I don't think. I'm looking. We did talk about the aspects of the book. Um, Friendship and safe community.
Think about teachers.
No,
Teachers are always so good at talking and so good at making all their points. You're just like, okay, that answered that entire question.
you have a lot of practice when you know there's a bell that's going to ring, or when you know you've got to give the kids 25 minutes to work and you just learn. I know I do. I knew I would miss it. I really do.
But it is so cool to. I think it's that's sort of I know it's still recording, but it's like it is very cool that like your ability to still find that way back, like that you found a way back.
And if it wasn't for COVID, I don't know that I would have ever had the confidence to even go down this road. Writing is one thing. I've been teaching English and reading my whole life when I was teaching. But I mean, to take it to this platform, had it not been for being thrown into Google Classroom like that, I don't think I could do this.
Oh, definitely. Actually, this brings us a good point. So we're back on interview.
Got it.
So when you started this thing, me and you have kind of bonded over the idea that like I'm a 33-year-old dad. I don't know anything about social media or a lot of technology stuff, and I had to figure it all out. And the idea of like going into this world where, you're having to learn all this stuff, while trying to create this environment for kids, you're having to learn a ton. So what do you think, for someone who's trying to, out there who wants to do something similar or do something, kind of like that, but what would you say is the advice to people who want to kind of take that next step forward, but don't necessarily know how to do it and are afraid of all the I don't knows? Because, especially in entrepreneurship, there's so much you don't know. It's unbelievable.
Well, everything. So that is a really great question. I feel like I did a lot of it in the writing community. There are definitely writing groups that you learn to be a part of because you know other writers. But when it came to a podcast for kids, I didn't know of anybody until I met you. And then when it came to creating an online course, there are once you start searching in Google classes for online courses, you start to see that in your Instagram feed, your Facebook feed, because of the algorithms. So when that happened, I would just start to click on them and read about them and listen to their ads, if you will. And honestly, the one that I took, which was with Amy Porterfield, I still have to finish the course because other things came down the pike. But I just jumped because I just thought, you know what, if you don't do it now, and she has an enormous following, it wasn't like I thought, oh, I'm not going to learn a lot. In fact, learning within that class, I am still like, oh my gosh, because you learn not only the class, but the sales end of it, the financial end of it, how to put all the pieces of that giant puzzle together.
Yes.
There's a course right now that I'm taking. It's a shorter course on Instagram, redoing it so that it matches your brand. And I need that. And then I think I'll be okay. But I think these platforms are going to evolve and change as the years, or I should just say months, because they change every so many months.
Oh, every month you get like hey, this is a new update. It's everything is always moving so fast. That's nice.
And
after a
community. I'm sorry. Once you get into the community, that's how I met you. You start networking. You start meeting other people that have something, a message that's similar to yours. And then it's so much more fulfilling when you actually have someone else to bounce ideas off of and share your expertise with.
It is, because it's so nice, because especially with, I've been doing this, we've been doing this for about a year. And, meeting you a few months ago, and like you start collecting friends, and you're like, I'm not a crazy person. This is
as much as I do in front of their screen.
I got an Apple Watch, and it's like every once in a while it's like, stand up. You need to do something. You just, because you get so. I found nothing more passionate than investing my life for kids. And like, I was an engineer by trade, and completely, changed my course. And this has been the most fulfilling.
So cool.
It's terrifying. And there's a lot, Google, it's probably never easier to learn, like, as you said, with Google, because it just like, especially it'll start spitting you off the algorithm stuff. But then you also realize how much there is to learn. And you just got to be able to, and as a teacher for 33 years, you're kind of going back to school, teaching yourself.
And dare I say, because I'm 58, I taught with chalkboard and chalk for the first 10 years, whiteboards, like it every 15 years, there's just a massive shift. But it was okay when I was in the school environment with my team members and training and all of those kinds of things. Doing this, you really are taking it on your own. And I think any one of us who does something like this, we just decide because of our passion, we're in it, hook, line, and sinker.
Exactly. And it's funny, you make a to-do list, and then, the next day you're like, no one else did that to-do list. It's all you.
And you add to it, there's just more.
Oh yeah. And it's so much fun. Like you sit there, it's something too, looking at such a big thing you're trying to create, and you're like, it's going to be fine. We'll figure it out.
Yeah. And I have to say, because my dogs also have an Instagram account,
Oh,
I have met in both Instagram accounts in both venues, just the nicest people. And in fact, so many of of the followers on my dog's Instagram account are so supportive of anything that I've done with this. I mean, just
awesome.
yeah, it's really a very nice world,
Mhm.
even for kids, if we just handle it and model it and lead them down the right channels, if you will.
Exactly. And that idea of like, some of the things that are taking it, people pay attention so much on the idea of what's taking them away.
Yeah.
And, but the idea of like us putting in, like, do you have to leave your job? No. Do you have to dedicate 24 hours a day? No. But like, if everyone did just a little bit more to help investing in that world or supporting those who do it, like,
Yeah.
it goes a long way, and especially with the kids, as we've talked about before, they'll gravitate towards it.
Hmm.
It'll just bring them there.
That was the hardest part when my daughter, when she listens to this, she might be upset with me, but she knows I adore her. When she became a teenager, I'll just say tween, 13 with the phone. And it was really when it was all starting to blossom and evolve into
Yes.
what it is today. And I had such a hard time with it. I just felt like she was going to lose the ability to have eye contact,
Yes.
see things that she shouldn't see. But in the end, I think with open communication over time, uh, I was checking what she was doing as well,
Hmm.
maybe sometimes too much. But the decisions that she did make really good decisions. I was really proud of her.
Yeah.
And then as once you see that they're okay, you become more okay.
Exactly. Yeah, and that's very beautifully said. Yeah, because with a 6-year-old, I'm like, I don't know what's going to be in this world 10 years from now, 5 years from
You
now.
guys will be okay. You will. You will. You just take deep breaths, but because you know it's coming.
It's coming.
But you guys, I think the role modeling that the kids have from their families, from their certainly teachers in schools, and even in their friends' homes, I think as long as that modeling is there, with whatever other restrictions that parents feel is necessary, I think it'll be okay.
Yeah, exactly. That's so wonderfully put. Um, and so perfect. So for closing out today, what I would like to do is just kind of all the links, and especially the dog Instagram account will be all in the show notes under here. So, do you have any,
You know it. I don't even know if you know it.
what was that?
The Instagram account.
Yeah, yeah, we'll put all that stuff in there. We'll collect it later.
Yeah,
Uh,
yeah. I was gonna say you know it.
so yeah, so if you could just kind of tell us about what you might have coming up in the future. I think you have new books coming out, right?
I do, yeah. So in April of this year, 2024, I have a middle grade book for ages 6 to 10 called Canines Unleashed about a
Okay.
dog named Hank who discovers one morning that he is going to doggy daycare because his owner is starting kindergarten and they don't want him to
Oh,
be home alone all day. So he has no idea how to go somewhere and make friends and learn to be in a new place.
huh.
Um,
Very
yeah,
cool.
the illustrator, she did a great job. And in the fall, I don't have the exact release date yet. Uh, the Sorry Seeds is based
Okay.
on a true story, and it's about a young girl named Courtney who lives in the same neighborhood as her first grade teacher, and she's always wanted an apple from her teacher's tree, and so she takes one, and she's caught. And how the teacher takes her home and how is she going to apologize the next morning when she has to see her at school.
Very cool, very cool. And all that stuff, we will, of course, that stuff will be, we will be highly plugging that when all that stuff comes out. So really appreciate it.
Sorry, thank
And
you.
when it comes to Little Leaders Podcast, your episodes are every 2 weeks, correct?
The first and third Wednesday of every month.
Perfect. That is wonderful.
Yeah.
And then and now we'll attach all your website, Instagram, all the good stuff in all the show notes. And anything else you have to say? Anything else?
I think it's so important for kids to just read. If you don't love books all of the time, I understand as a teacher because I picked the books often And so I always made sure characters, some were male, some were female, to be fair to everybody. Magazines. There are so many awesome magazines like National Geographic. Anywhere that you go, there's things to read, but always be open because you learn different perspectives, and every page of no matter what you read takes you on a different journey.
That is so great. That's wonderful. Well, Tina, thank you so much for joining us today on Within the Margin. I unbelievably enjoyed our conversation. Of course, I'm so excited to work with you in the months and years to come.
I am too. Thank you so much for having me. And I love that you push me out of my comfort zone, even with the things that I'm learning from you. It's awesome. You're another teacher.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Thank you. I appreciate it. Well, you have a great one. Thank you.
You too. Thank you.
And